Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido has alleged that the Nicolas Maduro government is trying to move up to $1.2 billion from State Development Bank and to its subsidiary in Uruguay. Guaido, however, did not present any evidence to substantiate his claims. Guaido, who last month declared himself as interim president, has repeatedly accused Maduro's government of stealing public funds. Major European nations have joined the U.S. in recognizing opposition leader Juan Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate head of state. The coordinated recognition by Britain, Germany, France, Spain and 7 more European Union members followed the expiration of an ultimatum for Maduro to call a new presidential election. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has called on the EU to reflect on the decision to recognize opposition leader Juan Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate head of state. In a statement, Venezuela's government said it was strongly rejecting the decision taken by the EU nations. It singled out Spain for criticism, saying it had acted cowardly. The UN Trade and Development Agency says a U.S. plan to raise tariffs on Chinese goods next month would have massive consequences for global trade and could trigger an economic downturn. The U.S. levied additional duties of between 10% and 25% on $250 billion of Chinese goods last year. The move was aimed at punishing China for its alleged unfair trade practices. The 10% tariffs are set to climb to 25% unless there is a significant headway on a trade deal by March 1st. A rare D-Day flag that flew on a U.S. Navy ship leading the Allied advance at the beaches of Normandy 75 years ago will be returned to America. Howard Vander Beek, the Navy lieutenant who commanded the vessel, kept the flag throughout the war, brought it home and kept it in his basement until he died in 2014. It was sold at an auction by his family to a Dutch collector who now wants to donate it to the American people. Iraqi President Barham Salih said that the U.S. President Donald Trump did not ask Iraq's permission for U.S. troops stationed there to watch Iran. Now, Salih was responding to Trump's comments to CBS News about how he wants the U.S. troops stationed in Iraq to watch Iran. Salih added that the U.S. troops in Iraq are there as part of an agreement with a specific mission of combating terrorism and that they should stick to that. Thousands of Yazidis who survived atrocities at the hands of the Islamic State group did bid a last farewell in Iraq on Monday to their spiritual leader who died last month. The longtime head of the world's Yazidi minority, Prince Tehsin said Ali died in Germany at the age of 85. Incense floated in the air as thousands of mourners solemnly lined up at the road and watched his wooden coffin go by. Musicians dressed in white played flutes and drums as they accompanied the funeral. A Palestinian was killed after Israeli forces opened fire on 2 young men in the occupied West Bank. The two were rushed to the hospital where one succumbed to injuries after he was shot in the head. Palestinian Health Ministry has identified him as 19-year-old Abdullah Tawalba. The other man to have received injuries is said to be in a stable condition. Israeli army says they opened fire after 2 men hurled explosive devices in the vicinity of the checkpoint. On day 1 of the visit to UAE, Pope Francis was given a guided tour of Abu Dhabi Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, one of the largest in the Islamic world. Sheikh Ahmed Al Tayeb, the Grand Imam of Egypt's Al-Azhar Mosque, guided the pontiff in his tour inside the mosque. Francis removed his shoes as he walked through the lavishly decorated structure. Anti-government protests resumed in Sudan's capital and his twin city of Omdurman as riot police fired tear gas on protesting crowds. Despite police action, protesters kept chanting freedom, peace, justice. Sudan's defense minister urged there was a need to include youth in the dialogue process and that they had quote-unquote reasonable ambitions. Students, activists and others have been demonstrating against the government almost daily since December 19th, mounting the most sustained challenge to President Omar al-Bashir's 3 decades in power. Four Peruvian miners have been rescued alive after being trapped for more than 3 days after a coal mine collapsed in the central town of WION. On January 31st, heavy rains in the central highlands of Peru have caused a coal mine to collapse, leaving the miners trapped some 100 meters deep. Ukrainian comedian who plays the country's president in TV series is currently leading in the spring's election. As the deadline for candidate nomination expired overnight, surveys show him ahead of former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko and incumbent Petro Poroshenko. But with a record number of candidates in the race, the vote remains highly unpredictable. Two former executives of an aluminium plant in Hungary were convicted and sentenced to prison for an industrial disaster that killed 8 people and injured more than 220 people. While on received prison term, the other one, in fact the other 2.5 years of public engagement in other crimes, the other received a 2-year sentence. In keeping with privacy rules, the court did not identify the defendants by their full names. Now, on October 4, 2010, a wall of a huge reservoir of the plant collapsed, flooding 3 towns and villages with toxic red sludge and water. The tractors and diggers kept working to drag a stranded adult fin whale out of the Spanish beach. The fin whale, second largest species on Earth after the blue whale, beached itself on Sunday following heavy storms in the Bay of Biscay. Officials say the whale was sick and undernourished. Now, love is in the bin. The work by graffiti artist Banksy that shredded itself after it was sold at auction last year went on to display at a German museum. Painting by mysterious British artist Banksy shred itself into pieces at the moment it sold for more than £1 million at a London auction in October 2018. There is speculation that the value of the artwork has now gone up, but the London auction house has so far not commented. Chinese communities began welcoming the Year of the Pig, ushering in the Lunar New Year with prayers, family feasts and shopping sprees in mainland China over the past week. Hundreds of millions of people have crammed into trains, buses, cars and planes to reach family and friends. Celebrations will take place across the globe, from Southeast Asia's centuries-old Chinese communities to the more recently established Chinatowns of Sydney, London, Vancouver, Los Angeles and beyond. Peruvian pedestrians received the shock of a lifetime with an airplane made an emergency landing on top of a car in the middle of a street in Lima. In a dramatic footage, the Peruvian Air Force aircraft can be seen resting partially on top of a parked car with one of its wings extending over a sidewalk. No one was seriously injured in the crash landing. Local police chief said major consequences were avoided because the pilot was experienced. He added that the two captains were injured with contusions. A day after the UK Home Office ordered his extradition, a fugitive Indian businessman Vijay Mallya has made it clear that he will make yet another attempt to delay his return. Now, taking to Twitter, Mallya said he would appeal against the decision. The UK's Home Office signed an order to extradite Vijay Mallya yesterday. The order follows a London court's ruling in December that Mallya, who moved to Britain in March 2016, be extradited to India to face fraud charges. The Supreme Court of India is set to hear CBI's contempt plea against the West Bengal government today. Supreme Court told the CBI that it will come down hard on the West Bengal government if the agency furnishes evidence to prove that the state government blocked a probe into chit fund scam cases. The court made the observation after Solicitor General Tushar Mehta referred to the siege of the agency's office in Kolkata.